Have you ever wondered if the ancient wisdom of the Bible could revolutionize your financial life? What if I told you that the answers to your money problems have been hiding in plain sight for thousands of years? Are you ready to discover the biblical secrets that could transform your relationship with wealth forever? Take a moment to reflect on these questions. Let them sink in, because today we're about to embark on a journey that could change everything you thought you knew about money and faith. Hello, dear friends. Welcome to our channel. Today, we're exploring a fascinating topic: how the timeless wisdom of the Bible can guide us in our financial decisions and ultimately lead us to a life of prosperity, purpose, and peace. We're concluding our series on the biblical foundations of finance, and I promise you, this finale is going to be nothing short of transformative. Before we dive into this topic, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Your participation helps us spread this transformative message to more people. Let's get started. Over the course of this series, we've delved deep into the scriptures, uncovering profound truths about wealth, generosity, tithing, stewardship, debt, ethical investments, and the value of work. Today, we're going to tie it all together, providing you with a comprehensive framework for managing your finances in a way that not only honors God, but also brings abundance and fulfillment into your life. But before we dive in, I want you to know that this isn't just another financial advice video. What we're about to explore goes far beyond mere money management tips. We're talking about a complete paradigm shift, a new way of viewing wealth that aligns with God's plan for your life. So whether you're struggling with debt, trying to build wealth, or simply looking to align your financial practices with your faith, this video is for you. We're going to challenge some common misconceptions, provide practical applications, and hopefully inspire you to take action towards a more biblically sound financial future. Now, let's begin our journey by revisiting the key themes we've covered in this series. Throughout our discussions, we've explored the multifaceted nature of wealth as presented in the Bible. We've seen that wealth, in God's eyes, is not merely about accumulating material possessions or money in the bank. It's about stewarding resources wisely, living generously, and using our financial blessings to further God's kingdom on earth. We started by examining the concept of wealth itself. The Bible doesn't condemn wealth outright, contrary to what some might believe. In fact, we see numerous examples of godly individuals in the Bible who were blessed with abundance: Abraham, Job, and Solomon, to name a few. However, what the Bible does warn against is the love of money and the pursuit of wealth as an end in itself. Remember the words of 1 Timothy 6:10, "For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Some people, eager for money, have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs." This verse encapsulates a crucial biblical principle. It's not money itself that's the problem, but our attitude towards it. This brings us to our next major theme: stewardship. We learned that in God's economy, we are not owners but managers of the resources He's entrusted to us. Everything we have, our money, our possessions, our talents, and even our time, ultimately belongs to God. Our role is to manage these resources wisely and use them in ways that honor Him. Psalm 24:1 reminds us, "The earth is the Lord's, and everything in it, the world, and all who live in it." This perspective shift from ownership to stewardship is transformative. It frees us from the burden of accumulation and the anxiety of loss, replacing these with a sense of purpose and responsibility. We then explored the biblical principle of generosity. Throughout Scripture, we see that God is inherently generous, and He calls us to reflect this aspect of His character. We're encouraged to give freely, not out of compulsion, but out of love and gratitude for what God has given us. Remember the words of Jesus in Acts 20:35, "It is more blessed to give than to receive." This counterintuitive principle challenges our natural inclination towards self-preservation and accumulation. It invites us into a lifestyle of open-handedness, where we find joy and fulfillment in blessing others. Closely related to generosity, we discussed the practice of tithing. We learned that tithing, giving a tenth of our income to God's work, is not just an Old Testament concept, but a timeless principle that helps us prioritize God in our finances. It's a practical way of acknowledging God's provision and expressing our trust in Him. Malachi 3:10 provides a powerful promise related to tithing. "Bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house. Test me in this, says the Lord Almighty." and see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing that there will not be room enough to store it. This verse challenges us to trust God with our finances, promising abundant blessings in return. We also tackled the often controversial topic of debt. While the Bible doesn't outright prohibit all forms of debt, it does caution against its dangers. Proverbs 22:7 states, "The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender." This vivid imagery underscores the potential loss of freedom that comes with indebtedness. We explored strategies for avoiding unnecessary debt, managing existing debt responsibly, and working towards financial freedom. Remember, the goal isn't just to be debt-free, but to be in a position where we can be generous and responsive to God's calling without the burden of financial obligations holding us back. Another crucial topic we covered was ethical investing. We learned that as Christians, our investment choices should align with our values. This means not only seeking good returns, but also considering the ethical implications of where we put our money. Proverbs 13:11 says, "Dishonest money dwindles away, but whoever gathers money little by little makes it grow." This verse encourages patience and integrity in our financial growth, reminding us that sustainable wealth is built over time through honest means. Lastly, we discussed the biblical view of work. We saw that work is not a curse, but a blessing, a way to participate in God's ongoing creation and to serve others. Colossians 3:23 instructs us, "Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters." This perspective elevates our daily work from mere drudgery to an act of worship and service. Now that we've refreshed our memory on these key themes, let's dive deeper into how we can apply these biblical principles to our everyday financial decisions. Remember, knowledge without application is like faith without works. It's dead. So, let's breathe life into these principles by putting them into practice. First and foremost, let's talk about developing a biblical mindset towards money. This is the foundation upon which all our financial decisions should be built. Start by regularly reminding yourself that everything you have is a gift from God. Wake up each morning with a heart of gratitude, thanking God for His provision. This simple practice can radically shift your perspective from one of scarcity to one of abundance. Next, make it a habit to pray about your finances. Bring your financial concerns, goals, and decisions before God. Ask for His wisdom and guidance. James 1:5 promises, "If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you." This includes financial wisdom. When it comes to budgeting, approach it as an act of stewardship rather than a restrictive chore. Create a budget that reflects your values and priorities. Allocate funds for giving first, then for saving, and finally for spending. This order is important. It ensures that we're putting God first in our finances and planning for the future before indulging in present wants. Speaking of giving, let's make generosity a lifestyle, not just an occasional act. Start by committing to regular tithing if you haven't already. Remember, tithing isn't about meeting a legal requirement. It's about cultivating a generous heart and trusting God with our finances. Beyond tithing, look for opportunities to be generous in your daily life. Maybe it's buying a meal for someone in need, supporting a friend's fundraiser, or donating to a cause you believe in. When it comes to saving and investing, adopt a long-term perspective. Proverbs 21:5 tells us, "The plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as haste leads to poverty." This doesn't mean we should be overly cautious or afraid to take calculated risks, but rather that we should be thoughtful and strategic in our financial planning. Consider setting up automatic transfers to your savings account each month. This pay yourself first approach ensures that you're consistently building your savings. When it comes to investing, do your research and consider working with a financial advisor who shares your values. Look for investment opportunities that align with your ethical standards. There are many socially responsible investment options available today that allow you to grow your wealth while supporting causes you believe in. Now, let's address the elephant in the room: debt. If you're currently in debt, don't despair. Develop a plan to pay it off systematically. The debt snowball method, where you pay off your smallest debts first while maintaining minimum payments on larger ones, can be an effective and motivating strategy. As you pay off each debt, celebrate your progress and redirect that payment towards the next debt on your list. For those not in debt, make it a goal to stay that way. Build an emergency fund to cover unexpected expenses so you don't have to rely on credit cards or loans when surprises come up. When making large purchases, practice delayed gratification. Wait, save, and pay in cash whenever possible. Remember, our goal isn't just to be financially secure, but to be in a position where we can be generous and responsive to God's calling. As you work towards financial freedom, keep this bigger picture in mind. Ask yourself regularly, how can I use my resources to bless others and further God's kingdom? Now, let's talk about work. Whether you're employed, self-employed, or looking for work, approach your job as a calling. Seek to serve others through your work, knowing that in doing so, you're serving God. Colossians 3:23-24 reminds us, "Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It is the Lord Christ you are serving." This perspective can transform even the most mundane tasks into acts of worship. It can also guide you in making career decisions. Instead of solely chasing after the highest paying job, consider where your skills and passions intersect with the needs of others and the advancement of God's kingdom. As we apply these biblical principles to our finances, it's important to remember that we're swimming against the cultural tide. Our society often promotes instant gratification, materialism, and self-centeredness. In contrast, biblical financial principles encourage patience, contentment, and generosity. This brings us to an important point. The application of biblical financial principles isn't just about personal benefit. It's about being part of a counter-cultural movement that values people over possessions, generosity over greed, and eternal investments over earthly wealth. Imagine the impact we could have if every believer embraced these principles. We could revolutionize our communities, support vital ministries, and demonstrate to the world a different way of handling money, one marked by freedom, joy, and purpose rather than stress, anxiety, and emptiness. Now you might be thinking, this all sounds great in theory, but how does it work in the real world? Let's address some common challenges and how to apply biblical wisdom to them. Challenge 1. Living paycheck to paycheck. This is a reality for many people, and it can feel impossible to think about saving or giving when you're barely making ends meet. If this is you, start small. Look for areas where you can cut back, even if it's just a few dollars a week. Use that money to start building an emergency fund. As your fund grows, you'll feel more secure and better able to handle unexpected expenses without going into debt. Remember the story of the widow's mite in Mark 12:41-44. Jesus commended the poor widow who gave 2 small copper coins, saying she had put more into the treasury than all the others, because she gave out of her poverty. This teaches us that it's not about the amount we give, but the heart behind it. Even small acts of generosity, when done with a willing heart, are significant in God's eyes. Challenge 2. Dealing with unexpected expenses. Life is full of surprises, and not all of them are pleasant, especially when they come with a hefty price tag. This is where the importance of an emergency fund comes in. Aim to save 3-6 months of living expenses. It may take time to build this up, but every little bit helps. Also, remember that it's okay to ask for help when you need it. Galatians 6:2 instructs us to carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. Be part of a community, whether it's your church, a small group, or a circle of friends, where you can both give and receive support in times of need. Challenge 3. Balancing generosity with personal financial goals. It can sometimes feel like there's a tension between being generous and working towards our own financial goals. However, biblical stewardship isn't an either-or proposition, it's both and. We're called to be generous and to manage our resources wisely. One way to navigate this is to make generosity a line item in your budget, just like your savings goals or other expenses. This ensures that you're consistently giving while also working towards your personal financial objectives. As your income increases, challenge yourself to increase both your giving and your saving proportionally. Challenge 4. Ethical dilemmas in the workplace. You might face situations where you're pressured to compromise your integrity for financial gain. Remember Daniel, who refused to defile himself with the king's food and wine, even though it could have cost him his position or even his life. God honored his integrity. Proverbs 22:1 tells us, "A good name is more desirable than great riches. To be esteemed is better than silver or gold." Stand firm in your convictions, even when it's difficult. Trust that God will honor your faithfulness. Challenge 5. Contentment in a consumer culture. We're constantly bombarded with messages telling us we need more to be happy. But the Bible teaches us that true contentment comes from God, not material possessions. Paul writes in Philippians 4:11-13, "I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all this through Him who gives me strength." Practice gratitude daily. Keep a gratitude journal, listing things you're thankful for each day. This simple practice can shift your focus from what you lack to the abundance you already have. As we wrap up our series on biblical foundations of finance, I want to leave you with some final thoughts and a challenge. First, remember that managing your finances God's way is a journey, not a destination. It's about progress, not perfection. There will be setbacks and challenges along the way, but don't get discouraged. Keep your eyes fixed on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy set before Him endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Hebrews 12:2. Second, don't try to go it alone. Seek out a community of believers who can encourage you, hold you accountable, and support you in your journey towards biblical financial management. Consider joining or starting a financial stewardship group at your church. Third, continue to educate yourself. The principles we've discussed in this series are just the beginning. There's always more to learn about how to honor God with our finances. Read books on biblical finance, attend seminars, listen to podcasts, but always filter what you learn through the lens of Scripture. Fourth, be patient with yourself and with the process. Financial transformation doesn't happen overnight. It's the result of consistently applying biblical principles over time. Remember, it's not about perfection, but direction. Lastly, and most importantly, keep your focus on God, not on money. Matthew 6:33 instructs us to seek first His kingdom and His righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. When we prioritize our relationship with God and seek to honor Him in all areas of our lives, including our finances, everything else falls into place. Now, here's my challenge to you. Choose one principle from this series and commit to applying it consistently over the next 30 days. Maybe it's starting to tithe if you haven't before. Or perhaps it's creating and sticking to a budget. Maybe it's setting up an automatic savings plan, or finding a way to be generous each day. Whatever it is, commit to it, pray about it, and watch how God works in your life as you step out in faith. Remember, it's not about earning God's love or favor. We already have that through Christ. It's about living out our faith in a tangible way and experiencing the freedom and joy that comes from managing our finances God's way. As we conclude, I want to thank you for joining me on this journey through the biblical foundations of finance. Your engagement and dedication to growing in this area are truly inspiring. I'd love to hear how this series has impacted your approach to finances. Please share your experiences, insights, or questions in the comments below. And don't forget, this isn't the end, but rather a new beginning. We're about to embark on an exciting new series about financial planning and management. Stay tuned for practical tips, expert insights, and biblical wisdom to help you steward your resources even more effectively. Remember, every financial decision you make is an opportunity to honor God and further His kingdom. So, let's continue this journey together, supporting and encouraging one another as we seek to be faithful stewards of all that God has entrusted to us. Thank you once again for your attention and participation. May God bless you and guide you in your financial journey. Until next time, keep seeking His wisdom in all areas of your life, including your finances. Goodbye for now, and God bless.